So I remember a church meeting. We were having an annual business meeting. And towards the end of the meeting, our pastor got up and talked about our local food pantry and the fact that he needed somebody to step forward and potentially help. Because if somebody was not identified as a leader, they were going to close. This broke my heart. The idea that families that are already struggling with food insecurity are no longer going to have a place to call home when their money runs out before the month does. So I was sitting in the meeting and I reached over and I grabbed my husband's leg. And I know inside every part of Eric was going, oh no, she thinks it's her. And I did. I did think it was me. And so after the business meeting, I went forward and I talked to our pastor and I said, I don't really know what this looks like. And to be honest, I don't even know if I'm equipped, but I love Jesus. I love my community and I love people. And I want to be a part of whatever this is. If I'm not equipped, have patience with me so I can learn. At that point of my life, I was a mom of 3 boys. I was pregnant with our 4th, and I was only working 30 hours a week and figured, well, most moms work 40 hours a week. I can figure out how to come up with an extra 10 hours. Then as we started getting into it, the obstacles surmounted, and the bank account ended up being almost nothing. And our inventory we knew was going to have to go down smaller, but what we didn't realize is that somewhere in the mix of about 2 weeks, we were gonna get a phone call, we meaning me, was gonna get a phone call from the landlord who was selling the building, and he said, Amy, you're going to need to restart this new thrift store with new inventory. One of the tenants that is living above the current thrift store, I just evicted them because they have Texas cockroaches. And ew, for me, a mom of 3 boys, I should be okay with that. I did not know what Texas cockroaches were, but they sounded really big. And so we're going through this process and it just felt like, okay, one thing after another, but I still knew. I knew that this was the path that we were supposed to be on. I knew that God wanted us to do this. And then on day 40, pregnant me went into an ultrasound with my husband. We were gonna have to go into labor and that our daughter was gonna be born without a heartbeat. And that's a gut check for me. One of the most devastating things in my life to that point. And professionally, I didn't even know where to go from there. But I knew one thing for certain, without a doubt. I knew that I was serving a God who loved me. I knew that I wanted God to win. And I knew that I had a broken heart that could only be mended from Him. And in that moment, it was a complete surrender. I hit my knees in prayer and asked God, this is beyond painful. I can't put the story into words. But I know that if you are in this, and I knew He was, that He could make purpose out of this pain. We were purposeful in prayer daily, asking for His provision and His vision to be concrete and solid. It would have been really easy at that moment to say, nope, not me. I'm not equipped. This is beyond me. But that wasn't God's plan. Families needed a beacon of hope in our little community of 7,000 people. Our families needed somebody to say that in these moments of struggle, that we can have really great successes. And God showed up in a mighty way. Within a very short amount of time, all of those things that seemed like crazy obstacles became success stories. And what we started to see was nothing shy of miraculous. The inventory was beyond capacity, to the point within 4 years, we needed to seek an additional building or a separate building, which God also provided. And the sales from this tiny little 2,000 square foot building became so great that we were able to seek a building that was triple the rent within 4 short years. That's a God story. Our team was gifted with the responsibility to put together 600 to 700 bags of food that fit into the backpacks of the littles in our K-5 buildings, so that on the weekends they would come back to school and those teachers knew that their bellies were full. We were giving away around $50,000 a year worth of free clothing, free dishware, free household items, free bedding, free pillow, like things that a young couple might just need to start out when maybe them and their 2 kids were sleeping on the floor. That's why we do what we do. We do ministry so that we can touch hearts and we can put hope in the path of people who don't know Jesus. And maybe that hope is a toothbrush. Maybe that hope is a bag of veggies. We don't know what that hope is, but if we commit to this, if we commit to telling God yes, His power knows no bounds, and His economy is beyond what this world can comprehend.